What do the Jewish people and the Serbs have in common? Two communities shaped in totally different corners of the world. One is often linked to the ancient Near East, sacred texts, and a long history of diaspora communities living across many lands, carrying memory like a passport that never expires. The other is rooted in the Balkans, an in-between region where empires overlapped. Borders shifted, and identity often had to survive not by leaving, but by living through layers of change. So here's the curiosity: how do identities form when history keeps moving? This video is not about ranking cultures, judging who had it harder, or turning complex communities into simple stereotypes. It's a comparison for understanding, because sometimes seeing two different journeys side by side helps us notice patterns we'd miss otherwise. We'll follow a clear roadmap in three big parts. First, who are they? We'll define what Jewish and Serb can mean carefully, because both labels cover huge internal diversity. Second, history and migration. For Jewish communities, we'll zoom out on the Near East and major waves of diaspora, and how different regional groupings formed over time. For Serbs, we'll zoom out on the Balkans as a crossroads, including Slavic migrations in the early medieval period, while being cautious about replacement stories and emphasizing continuity and mixing. Third, language, writing systems, culture, and religion. We'll see how diaspora can create a whole galaxy of community languages, and how a Balkan homeland can produce a different kind of cultural continuity often expressed through language, institutions, and tradition. Then we'll add one bonus section many people ask about: what does DNA say and what does it not say? Because genetics can be fascinating, but identity is bigger than a lab result. By the end, we'll wrap with a clean summary. 4. Similarities, 4 differences, and 1 human message about how identity is made. Let's start with the most important question. Jewish is a uniquely layered word. In many contexts, it can mean a religious community, people connected to Judaism, its texts, laws, traditions, and holidays. In other contexts, it can also mean an ethno-cultural community, a people connected by shared history, ancestry, and long-term community networks. Even when religious practice varies, that means you can find Jewish individuals and families who are deeply religious, moderately observant, culturally Jewish, secular Jewish, or something in between. And across different regions, Jewish communities develop distinct customs: food, music, pronunciation, dress traditions, and even different community languages. So when someone says the Jewish people, it's best to hear it as a family of communities, not a single uniform group. Now, Serb is typically used more straightforwardly as an ethnic and national identity, a South Slavic people historically linked to the Balkans. But even here, Serb is not one single lifestyle or belief system. There are regional differences, different historical experiences, different levels of religious practice, and different diaspora communities shaped by migration in modern times. A key point: internal diversity is normal in large communities. Labels help us speak, but they also hide detail. And we should say one more sentence out loud, especially in the era of ancestry tests. Genetics is not the same thing as identity. DNA can offer clues about biological ancestry and population history, but identity is lived language. Culture, memory, upbringing, community belonging, and personal choice all matter. So when we compare Jewish communities and Serbs today, we're not comparing blood. We're comparing two long journeys of identity formation through history, culture, language, religion, and migration. To understand Jewish identity historically, many narratives start in the Levant, ancient Near East, a region where ancient communities formed, changed, interacted, and left textual traditions that became central to Jewish life. over long periods, political upheavals, wars, economic shifts, expulsions, and opportunities for trade contributed to the formation of Jewish communities outside the historic homeland. This broad experience is often described with the word diaspora, Jewish communities living across many lands while maintaining communal continuity through religious texts, communal institutions, and shared memory. And here's where things get interesting. Diaspora doesn't mean one story repeated. It means a branching tree. Over time, distinct regional groupings developed, often described, in a very broad overview, as Ashkenazi, Sephardi, and Mizrahi. Ashkenazi is commonly linked to Jewish communities that developed in parts of Europe, especially Central and Eastern Europe, over many centuries. Sephardi is commonly linked to Jewish communities, historically tied to the Iberian Peninsula, and later spread across parts of North Africa, the Mediterranean, the Ottoman world, and beyond, especially after major historical disruptions. Mizrahi is often used as a broad label for Jewish communities with long histories in the Middle East and parts of West Asia. But we have to say this carefully, these are not rigid boxes. They're historical umbrellas. There are subgroups, overlaps, and families with mixed histories. And depending on time period and location, the same community might be described differently. Still, the big takeaway is powerful. Jewish identity often developed through a tension between continuity and adaptation. Continuity: shared texts, shared holidays, shared communal structures. Adaptation: living among different languages and neighbors, adopting local foods and styles, forming new dialects and customs while maintaining a sense of communal connection. Now, let's switch to Serbs. If Jewish history is often told as a story of diaspora across many regions, Serbian identity is often told through the story of a region, the Balkans, where multiple empires and cultures overlapped. The Balkans have been called a crossroads for a reason: Roman and Byzantine legacies, later Ottoman influence, and many shifting political arrangements shaped everyday life over centuries. In the broad historical picture, Serbs are part of the South Slavic world. Many historians describe Slavic migrations into parts of the Balkans around the 6th–7th centuries. But here's the crucial, careful point: migration does not automatically mean total replacement. It's tempting to imagine history like a clean before and after, where one population arrives and the previous one disappears. But human history is usually messier. Many scholars emphasize patterns of continuity, mixing, and cultural transformation, different by region, different by time period. So rather than saying they replaced everyone, a more cautious picture is often newcomers arrived, interacted with local populations, and over time, new social and linguistic realities formed, layered, not erased. This is where the layers metaphor becomes useful. Everyday example has shown the layered pastry. Imagine a pastry with many thin sheets. The top layer might be the most visible, like a South Slavic language identity, but underneath are other layers, older regional legacies, imperial influences, religious institutions, and local traditions that didn't vanish. They mixed into the taste. Everyday example #2, a map with transparent overlays. Think of a digital map where you can toggle layers: terrain, roads, population density, weather radar. One layer doesn't delete the other. It sits on top, reshaping how you see the whole. The Balkans can be like that. Borders changed, rulers changed, but people stayed, adapted, and passed down memory. So here's a clean comparison. Jewish identity formation is often narrated through diaspora, a community maintaining continuity across many places, forming distinct sub-communities shaped by where they lived. Serbian identity formation is often narrated through a crossroads region, a community shaped within the Balkans, where layers of empire and cultural interaction accumulated over time. Both experiences create deep historical awareness, but in different ways. One often builds identity through carrying community across space. The other often builds identity through living community across time in a layered region. And in both cases, identity is not a static fossil. It's a living story. Language is one of the most visible ways history shows up in everyday life. For many Jewish communities, Hebrew holds a special place as a classical language tied to sacred texts, learning traditions, and communal continuity. Alongside Hebrew, Aramaic appears historically in scholarship and religious tradition as another important layer in the Jewish textual world. But diaspora life meant that Jewish communities also spoke the languages of their surrounding societies, often developing community-specific forms over time. This is how we get famous examples like Yiddish, historically associated with many Ashkenazi communities, shaped through long life in European contexts. Ladino, historically associated with many Sephardi communities, reflecting Iberian roots and later Mediterranean and Ottoman environments. Again, we should avoid everyone spoke this. Many communities did. Some didn't. And languages evolve. The point is that diaspora can generate a constellation of community languages, a linguistic archive of where people lived and how they stayed connected. Culture and religion often travel together here. Many Jewish holidays, rituals, and communal practices function like a living calendar of memory stories retold yearly. Meals shared, texts read, and family traditions passed down. But practices vary. Some communities are more traditional, some more modern, some more religious, some more cultural. Now, let's look at Serbian identity through language and script. Serbian is a South Slavic language, and it's a major anchor of Serbian cultural continuity. And one of the most striking features is writing system. Serbian is commonly written in both Cyrillic and Latin scripts. This isn't just a trivia fact. It reflects the region's layered history and different spheres of cultural influence. In everyday life, you might see both scripts used in different contexts, sometimes depending on institution, location, or social preference. Religion is also a major historical institution in Serbian life, especially the Serbian Orthodox Church, which has played important roles in cultural tradition and historical continuity. But here again, we use careful language. Many Serbs are Orthodox. Many identify culturally. Some are less religious. Some have different experiences. Identity isn't a single switch. Culturally, Serbian traditions are also shaped by the broader Balkan environment, music styles, food traditions, family and community social structures, often influenced by long centuries of interaction across the region. So what's the comparison here? Jewish diaspora history often produces multiple community languages and regional traditions, alongside a strong textual and ritual continuity tied to Hebrew and religious life. Serbian regional history often produces a strong national language anchor, with visible historical layering expressed through script duality and institutions like the Orthodox tradition. Both show the same deep idea. Language and religion are not just features. They are memory technology, ways communities store and transmit identity across generations. Now for DNA, because it's fascinating, but also easy to misunderstand. Let's make it simple with 3 categories. Autosomal DNA is the big mix. You inherit it from both parents, who inherited it from their parents, and so on. It's like mixing paint over generations. The colors blend and spread across your family tree. Autosomal DNA is great for broad ancestry patterns. But the farther back you go, the more statistical and model-dependent it becomes. Why DNA follows the direct paternal line, father to son. It's a narrow line, like one single thread in a huge tapestry. Useful. But it represents only one path among many ancestors. mtDNA follows the direct maternal line, mother to child. Also, a narrow line, another single thread. So what does DNA often suggest in population research? In broad strokes, Many genetic studies discuss how various Jewish communities show signals of shared ancestry, connected in part to the Near East, combined with varying degrees of admixture shaped by long residence in Europe, North Africa, the Middle East, and other regions. For Serbs, research often highlights the Balkans as a historically mixed genetic landscape, reflecting South Slavic-related ancestry, combined with layers of older regional continuity and historical mixing over time. But here's what DNA does not say. DNA does not tell you which religion you should be, which culture is yours, or how you must identify. DNA cannot certify purity, and it cannot rank communities. Human populations have always mixed. Even communities with strong internal marriage patterns across certain periods still have complex histories. And ancestry results depend on reference databases and statistical models, so different tests might label similar genetic patterns with different region names. The best way to use genetics is as a tool for understanding population history, not as a judge of identity. Identity is lived, chosen, taught, remembered, and carried in language, tradition, and community belonging. Here's the comparison. Clean and respectful. 4 similarities. Layered identity. Both communities reflect centuries of historical change, not a single origin story. Internal diversity. There is no single Jewish experience and no single Serb experience. Memory as continuity. Shared stories, traditions, and institutions help preserve identity across generations. DNA is not identity. Genetics can inform population history, but it doesn't define cultural or religious belonging. 4 differences. Core historical setting. Jewish identity is often shaped through diaspora across many regions. Serbian identity is often shaped through life in the Balkan crossroads. Migration pattern. Jewish communities formed many global sub-communities. Serbian identity formed through layered regional history and shifting empires. Language outcome. Diaspora often produced multiple Jewish community languages. Serbian identity centers strongly on a South Slavic language, with script duality. Institutional anchors. Jewish continuity often emphasizes texts and communal religious life. Serbian continuity often emphasizes regional institutions, including Orthodox tradition, while personal practice varies. And the human message is this: identity is not a contest, it's a product of history, community memory, and the ways people choose to live under conditions they didn't always control. So if we zoom out, 3 ideas stand out. First, Jewish and Serbian identities both show how communities can survive across centuries by turning memory into everyday life through language, ritual, and culture. Second, the paths look different. One story often travels across many lands through diaspora. The other grows through a region shaped by many empires and layers of continuity. Third, DNA can be a powerful lens for population history, but it doesn't decide who you are. If you enjoyed this kind of edutainment comparison, hit like and subscribe, because we can do more episodes like this without falling into stereotypes or who's better arguments. And here's the question for you. Should the next episode go deeper into Jewish diaspora, Ashkenazi, Sephardi, Mizrahi histories, or deeper into the Balkan empires that shaped Serbian identity? Drop your choice in the comments.